Hey YouTube, long time no see. It's a long overdue video. Apologize for the lapse in content over the last few weeks, but I have, I think, solved my issue with getting into BIOS on this. It was a tip given to me by a viewer, what's his name? Pop Levente, if I'm pronouncing that right. And they mentioned disconnecting fans, and also that they had problems with a low RPM fan, causing them to have trouble getting into BIOS. And I thought to myself at first, well, I've already unplugged hard drives. I didn't have any of the fans plugged in. I even tried this setup, which is using the Molex instead of the onboard fan things, fan headers. Nothing's working. Tried a different power supply, you know, everything that I mentioned in my previous video. And then, egg on my face, I realized that my CPU fan, which is controlled by this board, was actually plugged in as well onto the motherboard, because this fan has a speed sense wire right there. It completely slipped my mind that it even existed. And since it was plugged in right down there, I just didn't see it. You know, I screwed up. I thought I had exhausted all possibilities, and there was that one thing. And I knew it would be one silly little thing that was causing all the problems. But luckily it's not the motherboard. It's just my negligence to pay attention. So now everything works fine. I can boot into BIOS. I'd have to move the camera, which I will in a second, but we can post just fine. Mash delete, and I'm in BIOS. No problem. Funny how that works, right? Probably help if I didn't get the aforementioned fan header stuck in the CPU fan. So I'm gonna have to tie that down. I really want to just replace this fan, like I've mentioned before. It's literally taped to my Thermaltake fan duct because it's such a deep, thick fan, and it's totally overkill. So I need to find the original 4-bladed fan that came with this heatsink. It's in a box somewhere. I think I know where it is. I'd lose my controller. Whoop. But really don't need that anyway. I just turn it down so it's just below audible anyway, and it just sits there, and I'm not gonna use up a 3.5 inch bay just to have a knob on the front of the damn computer. If anything, if I'm gonna have a 3.5 inch bay, there's gonna be a floppy there. So yeah. And there's a shot of us in BIOS. All is well. So let's take a look at the video card that I'm currently running. I think I mentioned it in the last video, but it's pretty sweet. So, one second. So the video card that I'm running right now is another FireGL, but it's not the X1. This is the X2. It's also an AGP Pro card. It seems to run a little warm. Like that was just idling, and it's got the heat sinks on the RAM, which feel fine, but the GPU itself, it just seems a little warm for idling. So I might have to do something about that in the future. Anyway, the X2 is based on the 9700 Pro. So this is a 9700 Pro, basically, 256 megs of RAM. I've tried the official drivers for this card and had some issues running benchmarks, etc. And then I installed just your everyday ATI Radeon drivers, and that cleared everything up. So if you're going to use this card for gaming, I would definitely go with just your average Radeon drivers, whatever the latest you can get, and you should be fine. So yeah, sweet card, and it's chump change compared to an actual 9700, which is those ask quite a bit of money on eBay. The only caveat, of course, is it's an AGP Pro card. There might be a regular AGP version. I know there's an AGP version of the X1. I don't know if that one was a 256 meg or not. I'm trying to remember. It might have only been 128 meg. And I haven't really researched the X2 that much, other than buying this one. This is actually a allegedly new old stock, which I believe because it's spotless. Seller said that it was some sort of OEM or bulk purchase, and they had a bunch of them and they just never got installed, so they were just sitting around, which is pretty cool. So people like me looking for a high-end card for little to no money get to reap the benefits. Not bad. I did benchmark this card. Let's see here. Against my benchmark results. Against the GeForce 4, against the 9700, regular 9700 that I was able to borrow. And then I've got two benchmarks for the FireGL X2. So 3D Mark 03, you've got 1564 with the GeForce 4 4200, 4224 with the 9700, regular 9700 Pro, and with the X2, I've got two benchmarks. Oh, it's a 9800. Duh. Silly me. It's a 9800 is what the X2 is based on. Sorry. I've got two benchmarks. One is when I was stuck at 1500 plus speeds because I couldn't get into BIOS earlier. And that gave me 4815. And then once I was able to clock the CPU correctly at 2100 plus, we're at 5207. Not too bad. And then a similar to the last time I benchmarked, the spread between GPUs on 3D Mark 01 isn't very big. So we've got the GeForce 4 at 9500, 9700 Pro, which is a far superior card. You know, it's at least 3 times faster in an 03. Is only another 1,000 points. And then the spread between the Pro and the X2, or the 9700 Pro and the X2, is less than 1,000. Yeah. So 3D Mark 01 is definitely not a very good benchmark for this era of card. I haven't obviously tried more recent versions of 3D Mark. I've just got the 01 and 03 currently installed. But it's interesting to see the significant difference between the 9700 Pro and the X2, again a 9800, basically 256 meg. And then also interesting to see how much the CPU clock speed changed the score. So we've got another 400 points between the bare bones 1500 plus incorrect clock speed and the proper 2100. I have tested my 2500 and it does work, so that's going to be going in next, and so I'll be able to further this section of the benchmarking to do stock 2500 plus clock speed and then overclock to 3200, because I know that CPU can do 3200 because that's how I ran it back in the day. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much the benchmarks change just bumping the CPU up those extra notches. Yeah, should be fun. Anyway, that's just about all I got for today. Hopefully I'll put up another video here soon. But until then, thanks for watching.